for joining us on the third episode of Bell to Bell on VIP YouTube. We hope you've been enjoying what we've been bringing you the first couple of weeks, and there's more of the same this week for boxing fans all over the globe or around the globe. For Bell to Bell Virgins, this is the fastest show around. Blink and you will miss it. 6 topics over 6 3-minute rounds of non-stop chat and fighting talk. I'm Stevelillis, and with me this week is my old mate, the top journalist, John Evans, who's going to be presenting next week. He sacked me for a week. And a very, very special guest, Unbeaten Pro, 2015, I think it was, World Amateur Champion, and the man mugged at the Olympics, Michael Conlan. Michael, thanks so much for giving us your time and a couple of the topics you've come up with that will get fans talking. Before we go on to seconds out, let's just ask you a couple quick questions, Mike. Isaac Dogbe, December 5, done, nearly done, some way to go or not happening?
I think it's nearly done. I think just money is to be agreed at the minute, and that's the last hurdle.
Great fight for you, and a great fight for him as well. It's a fantastic fight if it comes off.
Definitely 50-50 fight. Probably the first one in my career. I would actually put myself as an underdog going into it, and it's something that I'm reveling. So I'm excited, man. I want to go in and beat the dog shit out of him. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Does being an underdog really get you fired up, Mick? Is that something to really get your teeth into?
You know what? Anytime I've been an underdog, I've had that, and, there's no stopping you when you're that kind of way, when you're going in and expected to win, it's probably a bit harder, but when you're an underdog, or even in 50-50 fights, you've got to prove something that gives you that little extra bit of grip between your teeth. So it's something I'm excited about and something I'm looking forward to.
It's a great fight, as I said, great fight for him because it gets him right back at world level, and for you, it shows you are at world level for all these people that might doubt you. A brilliant fight for fans if it comes off, and fingers crossed it comes off and it's announced. But before we start, Mike, I must ask you, this weekend's fight, Frank Davis against Leo Santa Cruz, how does it go?
Leo's a 4-weight or 5-weight world champion? I don't even know, but he's come up from a really late weight and he's fighting up a super featherweight there, which I don't believe he is. It's a good money fight for him. Al Heyman's obviously paying him a lot of money, but I think a late Gervonta Davis stoppage, maybe even early, I don't know, but I think he wins by stoppage.
Okay, well, thanks for that your tip for the big one. We'll start with you, John. What's the first topic that's been giving you sleepless nights in downtown Oldham over the last week?
I'm not sure about sleepless nights, Steve. I didn't stay up late to watch it, but what about these superflies? I'll give you 4 names. You've got Roman Gonzalez, Juan Estrada, Saul Rungvisai, and Mr. Carlos Cuadras. If these guys were 20 pounds heavier, they'd be world stars, wouldn't they? They'd be the names on the tip of boxing fans' tongues all over the world. Forget your Canelos and people like that. It'd be Roman Gonzalez. It'll be Juan Estrada. When you look at these divisions, you've got the top names actively looking for reasons to avoid each other. They're looking for different routes, different ways to make the money, different routes to stardom. These 4 guys have fought each other 9 times over the last few years, and virtually every single one of these fights has been an absolute classic. You've got 2 Hall of Famers. Gonzalez is going in the Hall of Fame. Estrada's going in the Hall of Fame. You've got 2 little war machines in Rungvisai and Cuadras. What a mix. These guys deserve more credit.
You know what does me with Gonzalez and Estrada, people are excited for the rematch for next year. One of the great fights for early next year, we hope, to cheer everybody up. What's amazing about their rivalry, they had their last fight 8 years ago. How many fighters can fight 8 years on in a rematch and they've still got plenty left to offer?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? What do you reckon, Mick?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable fight.
I think we're losing you, Mick.
The internet's not the best here. Can you hear me now? Is that better?
That's better now.
That's better, yeah.
So I've watched 2 of the Roman Gonzalez Rungvisai fights. The first one was the day after my debut on the Triple G undercard. I thought Gonzalez won that one. And then obviously I was living in LA, so I seen the one where he got absolutely flattened, and that was unbelievable. That was a heart and mouth kind of fight, and seeing him go down the way he went down was just so dramatic. So, you know, I've watched Estrada as well. He was on that card, the Superfly 1 card, I think it was. You knew he was on it and everything. So these guys are unbelievable. They're crazy little dudes who are willing to just put it all on the line and swing for the hills.
Yeah, I reckon Gonzalez, at the time when they were putting him on with Golovkin, I think he was the best fighter in the world. You know, you got Lomachenko with his angles and his footwork. Gonzalez was using angles and footwork, and he was knocking people out at flyweight and super flyweight, which is just unheard of, isn't it? No one really does that. That guy is a little magician, and Estrada these days might just be the one guy who's got his kryptonite. You got, well, apart from Rungvisai, you got that sensational knockout. Yeah. But I think if you want to go quality for quality, if we're looking ahead to fights of 2021 already, Chocolatito, Juan Estrada 2 is the one to watch. And that's for 3 minutes.
Oh, you timed that brilliantly. The next one is I'm going to do the next one. It's Pretender or Contender. I think Dave Allen, he's getting a lot of stick again for getting on a pay-per-view card. And, you know, I get some of the times why he gets it, because, look, Dave, he's not a world beater. He's an honest domestic heavyweight, and I'm not being nasty to him now. I'm a big fan of him as a person. But I'll defend that he gets on these shows because he's worked on that persona himself, you know, through social media, the stuff he said. And here's more people talking about his fight with Christopher Lovejoy now on social media than Usyk versus Dell. Casuals know him. He'll actually sell pay-per-view this weekend on his own. You know, as I say, he's the one who's worked it in it. And if those, you know, some fighters who might not work at their PR as much, who are better fighters, did so, they might get the same results. And I can see why he's on his 8th or 9th pay-per-view. And it's a hard enough game. And as Mike will know better than anyone, he's a boxer. So, you know, lay off Dave Allen. He's got the breaks, but don't deny anyone getting on these big shows and making a few quid, because they're in the hardest game of all.
100%, Steve, 100%. And, you know, I don't like to see any fighter getting criticised, because at the end of the day, they're putting their lives on the line every time they get in the ring. They might not be damn, but let's be honest, when you're getting punched in the head, you're losing brain cells. So you are losing a part of yourself every time you get into the ring. And listen, Dave Allen, I love Dave personally as you know, as a human being. He's such a likable character, and he is a reason a lot of people will actually buy it, because he does the talk, and he has the persona, he has the public image which people like. You know, not many people have heard full conversation from Derek Chisora or Usyk. You know what I mean? They're not big talkers. They're not people who are going to sell a fight unless Derek's going to flip a table, which it doesn't seem likely in this one. But it's like Dave Allen will do the talking, and he will help sell some pay-per-view. So I wouldn't begrudge him anything. You know, he's on there earning money and trying to put, you know, more houses over his head or whatever he's trying to do, trying to secure himself for the future. So fair play to him is what I would say. Exactly.
How else could Dave Allen from Doncaster be a multi-house landlord? He's probably got a £1 million property portfolio. Hasn't he? You know, he wouldn't have done it any other way. He would have been on the building sites labouring, wouldn't he? Have either of you seen this Lovejoy guy?
No.
The Lovejoy I've seen was selling dodgy antiques on BBC on Sunday night. So I'm not getting a single scrap of him.
Well, the only Lovejoys I know are the antiques dealer and the guy that used to do Soccer AM, Beckham's mate, Tim Lovejoy. I've gone right through YouTube and I cannot find a scrap of him actually fighting for real. I wonder if it's an invented record, even.
You go 3 minutes.
Mike, what's your first topic?
John has it wrote down for me. I actually forget what I've said. What I was talking about. I think it's the
title for the women, Mick.
What is it?
You want a British title for the women?
Yes, 100%. I think that should be brought in. You're seeing so much more domestic fights now in terms of girls fighting, and they're very, very competitive, and they're getting stuck in, and you can see the talent coming through. Obviously, from like I'm going to be biased and say Kitty Taylor's the reason women's boxing's where it is right now. But not even being biased, she is. She's done unbelievable for women's boxing. You can see it even through the GB setup. right up for the Irish setup and everything. How much more talented the girls are coming through, and how much more, you know, appealing it is to actually watch the girls competing now. I think they need to have, you know, a women's British title fighter, or, you know, an Irish title fight or something, because the quality is there and the opponents are there for it to happen.
Yeah, I'm just not. I mean, I'm not sure whether the opponents, you know, are there. Because I think women's boxing will only get better when we get these great rivalries. It's like, I think you mentioned on the podcast the other week, we've got a Commonwealth title, which is similar to a British title. Rachel Bourne versus Ebony, the Australian girl. I can't think of her. You know, it's for a WBA bantamweight title. That should be for a Commonwealth title. I do think that until we've got more girls in each division, I think it's going to be hard to sustain these British title fights. But I think, you know, the British and Commonwealth, you know, certainly the Commonwealth should show a bit more respect to the girl boxers. Stacey Copeland didn't even get a belt when she won hers in Namibia, I think it may have been. They didn't even have a belt for her. Whether she got one in the end, I have no idea. But, you know, there's girls there coming through, like, you know, I think is in your gym, Ellie Scottney.
Yeah.
And she could beat most women in the world now, looking at her on her debut.
I'll be honest, Steve, I think she would win a world title right now. Watching her, I think she would win a world title right now. But another girl in our gym, Shannon Courtney, she lost to Rachel Ball, but I would like to see that for a British title. That's the British title fight right there, I think.
There you go. That would be that is the one great women's British title that we can have. You know, instead of it looks like it's likely to be for a world title against the winner of Ball and the Australian girl. But that would be a fantastic Lonsdale belt fight, and would be more than a world title to some fans.
The only problem we've got with not having it and having everything at world title level, we've got a girl in the Northwest called Rhiannon Dixon who can really fight. She's had 2 fights. She now trains with Anthony Crolla, so I assume she's going to be on Sky Sports soon. If she gets one impressive win, people are going to be talking about her with girls who are fighting for world titles.
Good luck, John.
So there needs to be a progression.
Silence. John, your next one.
Yeah, right. It's pay-per-views. I want you both to cast your mind back to, Steve, you'll have been there. Mick, you'll remember the halcyon days of Sky pay-per-views when you used to get Joe Calzaghe against Robin Reed, and then the broadcast would flip over to De La Hoya against Quarte in Las Vegas. And then they were just fantastic nights, weren't they? They'd be going for 10 hours. Dempsey would be wearing a tuxedo in the studio, and it felt like a real big event. Between now and Christmas, we've got at least 3 pay-per-views. I think Joshua's accepted, you know, he's a superstar. If Fury goes on pay-per-view, I don't know, but that's accepted because he's the world's best. But there's no reason for Usyk Chisora and particularly White Povetkin to go on pay-per-view with weak undercards. No. If you take away the bit about the world being in a pandemic and people struggling financially, that's a whole different argument. Top Rank managed to get Lomachenko and Lopez in together. I know the fees ESPN pay are bigger, but I think there should have been a little bit of giving back. Maybe combine all the cards into one big pay-per-view. But I just think if you go back to those days when you look at what we used to get for 15 quid compared to what we're getting for 20 quid now, I think the quality's just dropped right off the edge of a cliff.
It's that old adage where they say, you know, it's pay-per-view acceptable in this era. You know, it's a weak sort of excuse for it. But you know what? They cut, you know, the Fury fight. You know, Fury, I think that whoever he fights is a decent pay-per-view because people want to see him. And you could have Conlan Dogby on there. If you know, someone's got to pay their wages. They won't come cheap. Conlan and Dogby, you know, they're putting it on the line. You know, he's done 2 with the WBO Super Bantam, and he could just wait for his mandatory shot.
It's a good job earning a few quid with all these pay-per-views.
It's not what it was. And I think what we got with the TV networks, with, say, you know, the Usyk Del Boy one this weekend, they've got a certain, you know, I think, you know, that instead of before, we want to get 600,000-700,000 pay-per-view buys. Sky most probably will be secretly happy of 150,000, 200,000 buys this weekend to cover the cost of what this fight, what this fight is costing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's too much pay-per-views 100%, and the fact that, you know, I've complained about pay-per-views here, like White Povetkin last time I was complaining about, but it turned out to be a good fight. And that's how anyone I've complained about in recent times, they've actually turned out to be good fights, like White and Chisora. I was complaining about that being pay-per-view, but it turned out to be a good fight. But that doesn't justify the reason it's on pay-per-view. And I think that's what happens. They start to justify but they're so good.
Like the bell's gone. My final subject for the night is it's time for the lunch between Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren. They spoke about having this sort of lunch to discuss future fights. I mean, more interesting than the actual discussing fights. I can't see what they've discussed because they're the polar opposites of everybody. If Frank's got talking boxing, he's talking Motown music. And, whereas Eddie, I think Eddie would talk Towie. I wonder what they'd talk about if it's not boxing. But they've got fighters. It's daft to think we're going to see the likes of Buatsi Yard, Liam Williams, Felix Cash. But there's fighters they've got, that's going to be hard. That they might be finding it hard to manoeuvre into marquee fights. Well, they could get together and make, Sam Maxwell against Robbie Davis is a brilliant Liverpool fight. Kakashi Cortina, Gamal Yafai, Brad Foster, or Gamal versus Charlie, Charlie Edwards, Fowler or Cheeseman against Williamson or Metcalf, Cash v. the winner of Denzel, Bentley and Heffron. There's fights they could make that would really help them fighters' profiles because there's guys there, like Sam Maxwell, Sam Maxwell and Anthony Fowler, who, we're looking to go on to the next step, and they don't seem they can find the hole for them, their promoters.
Would that be enough, Steve? Would those names you've listed there, now they've talked about this great power broking thing, the fans are going to want big marquee fights, aren't they? They're not going to be happy with Sam Maxwell, with the greatest respect. They want Yard against Buatsi. They're going to want big meetings straight away.
But Mac, it's a start, and they're fights that are handy for both promoters because where the winner can move on. Whereas at the moment, them promoters, Sam Maxwell's, world ranked, Robbie Davis can't be far off, and they're finding it hard to manoeuvre them and boost their profile. They're fights that can. They're opponents that can help each other. And I think, fans would accept it to a certain extent, but we're not going to see Buatsi, Yard and Williams and Cash. I'm thinking purely from the right fights for them fighters. Mick?
I don't think it'll happen no matter what. I think there's too much ego involved. Can you hear me, Steve?
Yeah, we can see that, Mick.
You got me. I don't think it'll happen. I think there's too much egos involved. Whether it's Frank or Eddie, I'm not too sure, but their egos are too big to give way to each other.
Right, Mick, you've got the final topic, and I believe you're sick of people calling Lomachenko overrated.
Yeah, it is sick. I mean, everybody, a lot of casual fans or whatever you want to call it, or even just normal boxing fans saying that Lomachenko was all hype, great weight hype and all this here, and he was the biggest sort of shit anyway. He was a fake, but come on. And they're saying he's not, the people saying he's not going to be a Hall of Famer in terms of everything he's done. He's already a Hall of Famer in my eyes. But people saying he wasn't as good as what he's made. He was a fake and all this. It's just pissing me off. You don't achieve what he's achieved and how quick he's achieved it and beat the guys who he beat if you're not a great.
Yeah, I think, he should have been in the Hall of Fame when he turned professional. 3-9-4-1 as an amateur, winning Val Barker trophies. And I was blessed, I'd say, to be at the London Olympics in 2012. And I saw every fight of his. And afterwards, I was working for the Olympic body. And afterwards, he was up in the room where we was working. And it was like, you felt you was in awe of someone special. And, the thing I might have touched on last week, I do think he might find it a bit tough now at super featherweight because of the number of fights he's had. boxers tell me, he's getting a lot of injuries now. And I think they're the only thing that can maybe hamper him doing well again at super featherweight.
Yeah, I think super featherweight's probably his natural weight. If you look at what he's managed to achieve at lightweight, beating monster like Luke Campbell, size-wise, Campbell's a giant. Linares, who's a stunning fighter, isn't he, on his day? He beat Linares with a dislocated shoulder in a real give-and-take fight. And for such a small guy like Lomachenko to do that, it's fantastic. Mick, like you just said, people saying he was never all that. He wasn't all that for one night. I think him and his dad might have got it a bit wrong against Teofimo Lopez, but that's probably the second time in over 400 fights we've actually got something wrong. People who are discrediting him, talking out their arse, basically, aren't they? And imagine if he comes back to reclaim the title, would you make him a big underdog in a Lopez rematch? I certainly.
I wouldn't say a big underdog. I would have him as an underdog, yes, but not by much. Obviously he was injured apparently, so that might have had something to play. But I don't know. I think Teofimo is a fantastic fighter, fantastic human being, and just pulled out an unbelievable performance and just showed the size actually does matter in there. And Lomachenko kind of did look his age. He looked a bit old and looked a bit, looked his natural weight, the featherweight. So I've stood beside Lomachenko. He's smaller than me, and that says a lot. Like I'm going in the super bantamweight, and he's up at lightweight. So he's an unbelievable fighter and one of the greatest.
That's it. 20 minutes. We didn't keep you too long there, Mick, tonight. That's it. All over. Mick, thanks for joining us tonight. And all I can say is all the best going to super bantamweight. And fantastic that you're taking on Isaac Dogboe if it comes off, because I noticed today you're number 1 with a WBO. Number 2, sorry. And it just says a lot about you taking on a guy like Dogboe. Well, what if you wanted? You could have just had a couple routine 10-rounders and wait until the mandatory come along in 9 months and got your world title. So all credit to you there. Cheers,
Steve. Yes, I could have fought Batu or however his name is, who just beat David Oliver Joyce, and that fight was offered. And it was the choice between the two fights, and I says Dogboe. I want to face the better fighters. In my opinion, it's a fight that will prepare me for it, and one I believe will come through with flying colours.
Anything from you, John, before we go?
No, just to say thanks and good luck, Mick. Always a pleasure and a good value there. So thanks a lot, Mick.
Yep. Thanks, John. Thanks, Mick. And I'm not here next week. And John's working on a couple special guests next week. One has plenty to say for himself. That's all I will say if we can get this guy to do it. Thanks very much, everybody.
Cheers.